There's so many skills that you learn as a bio major that transfer into so many different roles. I think the most explicitly is obviously heading into a research or more of like a medical role, but the ability to take so much information and really pin it down to what's most important is like how I study for every bio exam in college. And what I have to do now in client meetings is take down literally every single word that they say and then distill that into how we're going to configure the software and how we're going to give them the product that they want to see when they're opening up their software and their database. They want to see very specific things, and that usually comes in a lot of words that you need to then look back at and like filter down into really what does the client want, what is going to help their business processes the most, what is going to make their clinical trials the most efficient. So that is like one skill that I really see transferring from being a bio student at St. Joe's to now in more of a corporate professional role. I would also say just being constantly curious and constantly asking why is something that I think is ingrained in all bio majors. I mean, that's why we study science. That's why we go into such particular detail about certain different topics, I guess, within the study. And I think the same goes for the type of role that I'm in now. I'm very much technical. I'm in the software, I'm configuring the back end, but I like to ask, why are we doing this? Why is this going to get their clinical trials processing faster? How do we get their therapy out to market faster? So asking those questions comes more intuitively than maybe someone who was out of a science major. I think that's, a really great question. And I think it ties back to the whole point of this seminar. Kind of the main theme that success comes in different shapes and sizes, and what success meant to me when I was a sophomore was hopefully becoming a physical therapist, and what success means to me now is completely different. And I think that translates to your experiences, like whatever you feel like is giving you joy and providing value, giving you opportunities to talk to new people, to learn from others outside your discipline is a good experience. I don't think there's like a regimented, like you need to do X, Y, and Z to land this role. I think it's just showing a long-term commitment to things that really excite you. And I think a good way to tell is that, sometimes when you're studying certain subjects, studying for 2 hours feels like 20 minutes, and other times 2 hours will feel like 6 hours because you're just not enjoying what you're learning. And I think noticing those things that when time goes really fast. And that's kind of how I figured out how I wanted to be in this role. It's just because going to more school, quite honestly, is like not what I wanted to do at the end of while I was graduating. I really just wanted to get into the workforce. I wanted to start contributing to the life sciences industry. So that's why I landed on a tech company. It's very fast paced. You're put on a few projects at different times with multiple clients. But I guess in terms of my experiences, just as like a reference, again, these are so customizable to you, whatever brings you joy. I would say a few big things were, first, I did undergraduate research with Dr. Skolnick, who's in the psychology department. So as I mentioned, you're definitely not just restricted to doing research within bio. I'm sure many of you were in phage lab and have like experience behind the bench in the bio realm. I did the same thing and I liked it, but I wanted to contribute to a different type of research that was a little bit more fast paced, which is how I found my way into psych and with Dr. Skolnick. So I did that for 2 years, and then I also did a summer scholars project with him. And those experiences came up in interviews with Veeva, those just kind of like how to iterate, how to pivot when you run into an issue or like your survey's not working and you need to figure out a way to get this sent out to a bunch of people, and analyzing the data. So no matter like what kind of research or critical thinking you're doing, I think that will definitely come up later in your career. So definitely undergraduate research. And then I think the second thing would be that I did an internship at a company called Inmar Intelligence the summer between my junior and senior year. So that will be next summer for you guys. And for reference, I did summer scholars between my sophomore and junior year. So this internship with Inmar, I literally just found it on LinkedIn. And it really just sparked my interest because I knew that I would be able to work somewhere within healthcare. I just wanted to know whether I would enjoy the business side of things, and it turns out that I do. So at Inmar, I was creating quantitative value propositions for all of the healthcare solutions that they sold. So I guess for an example, they process a lot of prescription returns. So if you ever thought about like, where does a pill go after it's done being used? They have these big manufacturing plants that recycle those. So I was working on kind of coming up with numbers like this saves, 20% of trees by, sending it all to this recyclable facility. Different metrics like that is what I worked on. And I really enjoyed it. I got to sit in on different pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson, like Pfizer, that were using Inmar's manufacturing houses to recycle those different drugs. So that's kind of where it piqued my interest in that. And a lot of internships, when you do intern between your junior and senior year, will offer you return offers. So you could start off your senior year with a job, which Inmar did offer me, but I ultimately just wanted something where I could be in New York. So that's why I ended up re-recruiting. But that's another like huge perk for people, is that when you intern that summer, the odds are of you getting a return offer are pretty high, and then you're kind of set and can enjoy your senior year and delve into whatever other things interest you that year. It's funny, I was just kind of told the same thing. They flew us all to Boston for a weekend, like all of the people in my development program for like breakout sessions. So I was there, and they kept, all the executives that were there kept iterating, like, network while you're here, like you're gonna meet someone who's gonna work with you in 20 years down the line. And I think for me, it's like still hard as a 22-year-old to be like, what exactly does networking mean? Like, how is that really, how are my little conversations day to day eventually going to, like, 20 years down the line, maybe end up with an opportunity? So I understand if, like, when you're told to network, that's like, how am I supposed to do that when I'm in college? But it's totally doable. I think starting small, starting with connections that like reaching out to me if you want to set up one-on-one time, if you're interested more about Veeva or my role. What I did to prepare for my interviews with Veeva is I was like shamelessly LinkedIn messaging people that were St. Joe's alum that worked for Veeva. And Lisa actually introduced me to Alessandro Sparaccio, who is a few years older than me. I want to say like 4 or 5 years older, but in the same exact position that I'm in now. And she kind of connected me with him. And again, I just went in like so shamelessly asking every question under the sun. And I think St. Joe's alums just have an affinity to help other people out. I think that's like built into the culture of the school, and why we have such a strong alumni base. So I wouldn't be scared to reach out to someone older than you, whether that be through SJU Connects or LinkedIn, and schedule those like little networking calls. And even if you do like want to go into PT or medicine or research, which I know is what a lot of people do from a bio major, that's networking still applies there as well, in terms of like getting you into a graduate or medical program. But especially like for more corporate roles, really digging into like why people want to work for that company, what gives them joy, what makes their hours go by quickly. Those were a lot of the questions that I asked Alessandro. And it feels just like more familiar when you're talking to someone who, went to St. Joe's. Like I always opened up those calls with like, oh, I'm like in Manayunk right now. Like, what's your favorite like restaurant here? Something like to break the ice, which is another tip that I would say whenever you're like opening up a Zoom call. Never just say, oh, like, how are you? I'm good. No, never just end with that. Be like, I'm good. I just like went for a run across the Manayunk Bridge this morning, or like, I'm good. I'm like reorganizing my room. Something silly just to like make the conversation start on a more light foot than just like getting into the nitty gritty of the networking call. So at Veeva, there is Generation Veeva, which is basically an umbrella term for all of the different development programs. So within Generation Veeva, there's the analytics development program, the engineering development program, and business consulting development program. And then I'm the fourth of that, which is the consultant development program. So all have different functions, all have different interview processes, all are different parts of the company, but I can speak on the CDP or consultant development program. So within CDP, you are assigned a team. So I'm on clinical operations in the regular or research and development side of the company. And I have like I thought that this would be helpful to show. I'm going to share my screen of just like the breakdown of the company, because I'm still confused about it a month and a half in. But essentially, Veeva's goal is to create the industry cloud for life sciences. So across the board, pharmaceutical biotech companies, they want them to be using Veeva software to help their business processes, to get their drugs out to market, to get their therapies out to market faster. So the company is kind of split into two different sides: the research and development cloud, which is what I'm in, and then the commercial cloud. So we're talking about marketing the drug, how it's going to be, I guess, perceived by different doctors, how insurance companies will take the drug. So we have that whole side of the company, which I honestly have no idea about. It's like, I don't hear about it on the day-to-day, but these are the two sides. And then from the development cloud, I fall into clinical operations. But some of my peers also work with more like regulatory and quality stuff. But I specifically asked to be placed within clinical operations because it excites me. Like, I still have that love for bio and for research that I did when, like, that's why I was a bio major. I just wanted to contribute to the industry in a different way. So that is where I kind of fall within the company. And I hope that kind of clears things up for like what Veeva offers. But essentially, it's all built on top of like one platform that you can log into wherever you are, from your phone, from your computer, and see different data depending on where in the business you're talking about. So if, for me, like clinical operations is how many patients are enrolled, what are their test results, what are the supplies for the studies, things like that. Versus marketing is a whole different ballgame of like how people in the world are perceiving ads for drugs and things like that. But in terms of my day-to-day, so Veeva onboarding is pretty rigorous. I'm honestly like just coming out of it after a month and a half. We had lots of like capstone projects, which were basically scenarios of this is what a client will ask for, and then this is how you're going to present it to them. So I actually just wrapped that up on Friday, and then my first project kicked off this past Tuesday. And so just for an example, I'm right now on a med tech project, which is a medical technology. So instead of being a drug, they create like heart pumps and heart valves, and they're using Veeva software right now to run their clinical trials and to train their different members of the clinical trial. And there's some certain elements to the software that need to be updated, that need to reflect the fact that they're adding more study sites and more research sites. So basically our job with this project is to take those business requirements. We actually have a meeting with them tomorrow to kind of finalize them. But I think the biggest thing is just making sure that there's more flexibility with the software right now, so that they can better utilize it, since they are a growing company. So what we do is we take those business requirements, and then we configure the software on the back end so that different dashboards show up, so that the business requirements that they're asking us for are easily populated. So they're kind of like paying us to configure the software, and then we'll have lots of workshops and meetings, and they'll be like, oh, can you tweak this? Like, we want this word differently. Like, we're able to change all of that so that it's best for their business processes. So project work definitely takes up like a majority of my time, but I would also just say like internal initiatives. We have this really cool thing called a CDP PAL, where they assign you a PAL in a different country. So my PAL is Emma, and she's in the Barcelona office in the same position that I am, like in clinical operations. And it's really cool to like talk to them. They just went to Berlin. Like, we all went to Boston for our Connect, and they all went to Berlin in the EU program. So that's something that I like to be involved with. And then upcoming next week, I'm going to start helping with recruiting. So the same like process that I had to go through to interview with Veeva, I'm now going to be helping with on the back end. So filling out feedback forms, participating in those first round interviews is another kind of section of my time. Just for a little background, the interview process, the second round of the interview is a candidate exercise, or like a case study. And this is pretty common in consulting roles, but instead of like if you're working for like a big four, like PwC or KPMG, you'll have a case study with like a business problem. And it's very similar to that, but the business problem will be involving Veeva software, and they'll give you directions on kind of getting you started on how to configure it. But for the interview, it was that this company wanted to create a new workflow for their clinical trial documents. So it was a lot of self-teaching of how to configure that. They gave you basically all the resources that you needed to. But in terms of like trial and error, practicing different things in the back end and making sure that it then works on the front end of the software, was a big part of that. And I would say you're very supported in terms of like refining those technical skills, but that interview is like a really big determining factor of like, can you teach yourself without help? But once you're in the role, like I have a million people to go to for help. That's like a very, you're never alone on a project doing that, but they just kind of want to see, can you teach yourself this very simple element of the software? And if you can, they most likely move forward. Veeva is amazing, and they do a work from anywhere policy. So most of the roles in the company, you can work from anywhere, but you also always have the option to go into an office if you want to. So part of the reason that I moved to New York is because I did want to go to the office here. It's our biggest office, besides headquarters in San Francisco. And lots of people go in, lots of executives are in the New York office, and lots of our client meetings are held here. So there are benefits to that, but also like the ability to work at this job and like save all the money and like stay at home for a year. You're also able to do that and then move. That's kind of what I did. I stayed home for like 2.5 or like 2-ish months, and then I moved out. So it is like work from anywhere, but you can really take that as you will. You can go into the office 5 days a week, or you can do it completely remotely. The biggest thing for me was feeling like pretty burnt out from just studying. And honestly, like the investment of time, the investment of money that you'll make going into a graduate program or medical school or a research program, it wasn't there for me at the end. Not to say that that's like, it's still an incredible path. Like I respect it so much. But for me, that was kind of the deciding factor of like, I didn't have the steam left in me. And then additionally, going abroad was like a really big pivotal moment of, I want flexibility to maybe do this full time one day. I still have like the goal of moving back for a year or two. And Veeva has offices in Berlin and Barcelona and London. Like a transfer would be pretty easy to move abroad for a few years and have that experience again. So I know that's like absolutely not what everyone does. I think it's like, that's a smaller population. But I think just like trusting my gut and not letting the pressure of what a bio major means sometimes get to me. I think like I had put myself in this whole like, you're a bio major, you need to go into medicine or you need to go into research. And I'm just like here, this is why I like volunteered to do this. Like I'm here to show you that that's not the only option, or that's not the only path that you can take with this major. There's so many opportunities. You don't need to work for a company like Veeva. You could go work for a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company and be working in their business processes and still feel like you're touching the healthcare system. So that was like kind of my goal. And I feel like why a lot of people have a bio major is because they have that same feeling. So I guess like last piece of advice before we move into the student questions is like, it's okay if you're confused right now. It's okay if you like bio but don't want to like do it for another 4 to 8 years with a graduate program. Like there are so many opportunities out there, and all it takes is a few conversations and just a few opportunities to like align you to the path that excites you the most. I love that question. And yeah, this is like some things falling into place, but there have been a lot of hardships, a lot of confusion with like even regretting my major at one point. Like when I was applying, I was like, oh, should I have like done something more in business? Like now knowing what I know. But I think you're ultimately the one that's going to be in that role or be in that graduate program. So really like just reflecting again, I know I've reiterated this, but like what events or like what studying makes you feel the most alive? Like what takes the least time in your mind? Of course, there'll be discouraging moments, but I think having like that vision at the end of the tunnel to push you forward is really motivating. So for me, like once I finally decided like New York was where I wanted to be, the city gives me the same feelings that I felt abroad. I'm surrounded by people that really motivate me. Like that was more of a goal to me than my job was. It was like whatever job can get me there, can like provide financial like soundness to get me to that goal was really what I was looking for. So if that goal for you is being near family or being able to treat patients every day, whatever that goal for you is, keep that like really high in your brain, and ask yourself every time an opportunity comes up or you fail a biochem test like I did, like I literally bombed a few quizzes in that class, like you just have to remind yourself that, you know, these are just like little steps to ultimately get you to that big goal. The Merck partnership is crazy. That is the first of its kind at Veeva. So normally all of our clients are like on a 1-year basis, like they pay for a 1-year contract and they'll get those services for 1 year, but Merck signed for 10 years. And basically what Merck said is that like, we have loved Veeva, we love your products, we use almost everything that you guys have to offer. So here's our commitment to saying that whatever new releases you create or new software, new applications, we're going to give it a try. We're going to have teams in place to implement that and then start adding that to our business processes. So that is huge. That is like kind of the goal for Veeva in general, is to have some of those bigger companies like Merck, J&J, Pfizer to create those partnerships. Because honestly, those companies are using like 25 plus of our applications. So to have that partnership like set in stone is huge. And then I guess the second part to your question was like, how could that come into play later in your career? I think like, obviously I love Veeva and I can see myself definitely here for several years, but like looking down a career move, a lot of people from Veeva will go to like work for Merck or go to work for J&J at a higher level role, since they know the business processes through those meetings. So that's a cool, like many years down the line, an opportunity of like, if you had a client that you really got along with, that you felt passionate about their work, you might find an opportunity there. And that definitely is said for like a lot of consulting roles. I know a lot of people like at bigger consulting firms will work for, you know, a Pfizer and realize that they love life sciences and then go work for that company. So in terms of like changing your career path, those opportunities I think are there more readily. But yeah, that Merck partnership is like, it's so cool. We talk about it all the time. Like I'm so early on, it's hard to think that far down the line, but just to speak on like Veeva's development programs, the promotion path is really like laid out for you. And that's not something that I was thinking about at all while I was applying. Like I wasn't thinking like, oh, when am I going to promote and like get a pay increase, get a title change. But essentially like after 1 year in this program, I'm eligible to bill hours to the client. So right now I'm kind of doing like non-billable work. I'm helping on these projects, but not like billing any of my hours to the client since I'm very much in a learning phase. Like I really have no idea what's going on most of the time. But in a year's time, I'll obviously have more experience and then I'm able to start billing those clients and then you get a portion of that added to your salary. And then after those 2 years, you then promote from an associate consultant, which is what I am, to a consultant. And that's another increase of responsibility and pay and benefits. So that is like a very clear 3-year path that I like plan to stay at Veeva and follow that through. In terms of after that, I have no idea. That will be a question for future Katherine. Honestly, haven't felt too much second guessing with the role or the position. I think I've been afforded a lot of flexibility, like having worked at a company where you can work from anywhere. I think if like our first 2 weeks of onboarding were in Boston, so I was in Boston living out of a hotel room for 2 weeks, and that was extremely tiring. And I honestly don't know if I'm the type of person that could go into the office 5 days a week, which is a lot of cases for corporate. So you kind of have to determine that and know the hybrid work schedule ahead of time, if you fear that. So that's like the only kind of time that I like felt really run down was after all of that in-person time. But since then, I mean, it's been really wonderful, and just reflecting on some of the doubt that I had as a bio major when I was just like really frustrated with like the material that I was learning, or asking myself like, oh, how is this going to apply to like my life now that I know that I want to do this? All of those were such good learning experiences of like pushing through difficult times. Like any job that you're going to have you're not going to have a good day every day. you just want to make sure that the amount of good days outweigh the bad days, and that you like the people that you're working with, and that you have the flexibility that you want. And looking back, that's exactly what bio gave to me. Like, I still really loved more of the good days than the bad days, and I still got so much out of kind of stretching myself of like, you're gonna understand this concept, like I'm gonna write out the pathway to photosynthesis 40 times and like until I know it. And that's so satisfying at the end of the day. So those moments of doubt, they in the moment they really don't feel good, but like a year or two down the line, you'll be like, oh, that's why I was feeling that way at that time, and it all works out. Overall, I would say absolutely St. Joe's helped me to where I am today. A few things like you mentioned, the study abroad program, having like the career seminars, McNulty helped a lot. Just all the opportunities, and then having the network of hawks are like I said, the people really like to help other hawks. And that alumni network is really strong. So leaning on those people, there's a hawk basically everywhere you turn. Like, even if you want to move across the country, like I'm sure there's a hawk in LA that would talk to you about the move. So it's like doing that due diligence of finding that person, finding who you connect with, and reaching out. I would say the one thing that I just recognized as I was pivoting away from going towards more PT or medical school. Obviously, St. Joe's has like incredible HPAC program. I have friends that went through HPAC. If you're planning on going to medical school, we have Jefferson right down the street. We have PCOM. Like, just a lot of those graduate programs are really close by. But I didn't feel like there was as many people like me that took a bio major and went corporate. So that's why like I'm here. That's why I would love to talk to anyone who like feels similarly as I do. They weren't as explicit of resources. I think we brought in like a lot of people that had been through the graduate application process or medical application process, and you could still take lessons from everything that they say. But in terms of like turning bio into more of a corporate environment, that is like the only thing that I felt like was a tiny bit lacking. But that's why like I hope to bolster that. And like, I know I'm hoping to be on campus later in the year for the science and like life science career fair with Veeva. So maybe you'll see me then too. I've been like talking to our recruiters about doing that. So I think it's like definitely in the works, and especially with the sciences merger, like there's so many more resources now, and so many more people that have took science and gone a direction outside of, I would say, like the traditional paths.